He's going to be our head of platform security, so we're really excited about this work that he's going to be doing. And I believe he will be able to work on Django a little bit too. So anyway, I'm also a member of the Python Software Foundation. But I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. Once upon a time, there was an open source project called the Facebook SDK for Python. Has anyone here used this library before? See, Facebook is like a tremendously popular platform, and having developer tools that are really top-notch and used by a lot of people is really important for them. But unfortunately, they had this Python Facebook SDK library that was on GitHub, and it kind of fell under their radar for a while. I assume they had like an intern working on it, or someone that was assigned to work on it moved to a different project or something, and basically it just completely stopped working one day. And it was very sad. There was like 18 different issues raised on the project of people like genuinely wanting to help out with the project and contribute, and they couldn't. And then eventually like Hacker News got word of this, and it was like #1 for a couple days, and there was like 100 comments on this issue of people like, please respond to us, tell us what's going on. This thing doesn't work anymore because of your API changes. Is Python not a priority anymore? So Facebook eventually did respond, and unfortunately their way of responding was just disabling the issue tracker on the project so that there was no more comments. This is actually fixed now. They actually have a new website. I think it's called pythonforfacebook.com, and it's I think they actually have someone working on it. But this was like a really big, it took them like a year. It took them like 6 months to even delete the issue tracker, and then another year to actually people start working on this. And that really sucks, So this is an example, unfortunately, of something that happens a lot in open source software, and I don't really think it's open source at all. I call it public source, which is basically a company, they write a piece of code, or someone in their organization writes a piece of code that they think other people will find useful. All right. So basically, they just slap an open source license on the code, and then put it up on GitHub, and other people can use it. Which is great, it's more useful than keeping it private and internal. But unfortunately, like these projects often get abandoned. Maybe the person that was working on the code doesn't work at the company anymore, and he moved on, had different priorities, was working on different experiments. And the bad part about projects like this is that sorry, my mic keeps cutting out. The motivations are unclear for the project. So they have this thing up there, and it doesn't have any updates, and they're ignoring and like deleting the issue tracker. Why do they have the project in the first place? It's unobvious, and it sucks. So on the opposite side of that's like one style of open source projects. On the opposite of that is a project called GitTip. GitTip is basically this platform for sustainable crowdfunding. If you want to support someone in open source, currently, or ideally it'll be anyone in the world, but at the moment it's mostly developers. If you want to support them, you can say, I want to give this person $1 every week, and then ideally 1,000 people do that, and then they can like quit their jobs and work on code all day long. And this project takes open source to the absolute extreme. So instead of just like having the code be open source, it's actually trying to be the world's first open company. So basically there's a GitHub issue for literally everything that ever is raised, or any issues that people have. So if someone wants to change the name of the company, they think that the domain name needs to be renewed, they want to change like things on the homepage. They go and they create a GitHub issue, and anyone in the world can go and comment on the things that they're doing and actually be a part of that process. And it's really great. Major decisions are voted for on GitHub. So like someone wanted to change the name once, and there was like 200 people that commented and had they actually voted on changing the name of the project. Interviews with journalists are actually live streamed, which is very controversial. So a lot of companies won't talk to GitHub because they have to, it literally like goes on YouTube and everyone can watch. And not many people are going to be doing that, but it just makes people uncomfortable. And all formal discussions with other groups, like other companies that they want to be partners with, they need to be publicly documented and shared. They don't want any like private backdoor collaborations. They want everything to be out and in the public. And this is Chad Whitaker's great quote about it. He's the maintainer of the project. And is that I'm not building GitTip, I'm building a community that is building GitTip. And I think this is really important. This concept of, this style of project isn't like just putting code out there for anybody. He's not even trying to promote his own work and the things that he's doing. He's trying to create a community that is sustainable on its own, which is really awesome. So I call projects like that basically shared investments. And there's a lot of examples of this. I think Python and Django are run in a similar way. I don't think they're quite as extreme as that. Obviously. They're not going to be like live streaming all of the meetings that people have. But often, they're taking place in public forums, IRC channels, and mailing lists. This is really great because there's a shared ownership and extreme transparency. Usually there's like very little questionable motivation in the project. Like no one questions why Django exists. Everyone knows that it's, they're trying to make the world a better place and make the world's best web framework. And it makes it really great because everything is documented in a very public fashion. New contributors can get involved by following the documented process. There's no question on like, what do I have to do in order to start contributing? It's written down and there's a document on that. And this reduces the risk for everybody. There's no like, there's a high bust factor. So, if Jacob Kaplan-Moss gets, is on a plane that crashes or he has gets hit by a bus, basically, the project isn't going to die. It'll be fine because there's lots of people with shared investment in the project, which is the opposite of that Facebook situation where there's some guy and no one even knows who it is that's maintaining it. So I maintain requests, which is HTTP for humans, and it is a slightly different style of project than those. It's one of the most installed PyPy packages. It's been downloaded 3 million times, and it's been contributed to by over 100 developers, which is really awesome. And it's considered by a lot of people to be like a good open source project, which I'm pretty proud of. But there's a really key difference between requests in a project like GitTip or Django or Python, and that's that 0 of the project's decisions are made by the community. They're basically all made by me, which is a very different style of operation. So I call projects like this dictatorship projects, basically. There's a BFDL or BDFL that owns everything in the project and makes all of the decisions. So community feedback is encouraged. I have people come to me and tell me, all kinds of things that they want to change in the project, and I seek that actively and try to be as approachable as possible. But users with feedback should have like no expectation of change. Like if someone comes and they say, I really wish it would do this, if it's a project like Python, theoretically, if they get enough people to agree with them, and it's a good idea, they could get that actually implemented and changed. With requests, it's not quite the same. I'm a little bit more picky about the things that I want to do, and if someone has that feedback, they shouldn't expect it to definitely happen. So, and I do this because I'm not a control freak. It's just that I think the value of the project really lies in its extreme opinions. Basically having few people involved in the project at the core really allows for quick and precise iteration. And his opinions would be diluted if more people were involved in the decision-making process. If you have like 10 people, you have the tragedy of commons that starts to come into play where everyone has good intentions and is trying to make it better, but it can dilute the core value of what I'm trying to accomplish. But again, there are downsides with this as well. The bust factor is extremely low, so if I am on a bus and I get hit, someone else can fork the project and maintain it, but currently there's no shared investment in the project. It's mostly me. The risk of burnout is extremely high because I'm basically the point of failure for the whole thing, which sucks. And if the BDFL loses sight of his goals, the project is basically ruined. So maintaining a project like this, I think, has been really fun and rewarding for me. And I think a lot of people, when they run their personal projects, run them in a similar fashion, at a smaller scale often. Well, they'll have like a couple people that contribute and they collaborate with others, but they are the people that are running this project and they're building it for their own use, basically. And it can have some pitfalls like I just went over. So I'm going to go over some of the lessons that I've learned in maintaining my projects that kind of help avoid all of those downfalls. The most important one is be cordial or be on your way. Who here has ever opened up an issue on GitHub or on something and had someone basically talk down to them, yell at them, say that it was an inappropriate comment, all that stuff, make them feel really bad? Come on, I know it's more than that. It's okay. Really, 2 people? Django community must be awesome. Well, if you're a contributor and you're going to work on a project, you need to keep all of your interactions with the maintainer as respectful as humanly possible. Oftentimes, you'll have a new contributor come into a project, or just not a new contributor, just a user of it, and they'll say, this should be doing this is wrong, this project is destined to fail. And they're like demanding that you get changes implemented immediately, and they have a very condescending tone. And they need to keep in mind if you're trying to contribute to a project that the people that work on these projects have donated a significant amount of their time already into this project. They're doing it they're usually doing it out of goodwill, and you should be treating them with respect, because it's stressful to get comments and people telling you that your work sucks when you put a lot of work into it and you're proud of it. And the maintainers don't owe you any of their time. Hopefully they'll give you as much of it as you need, but they don't owe it to you. So if you're a maintainer, you have the crucial responsibility of being immensely thankful to all of your contributors. If you have that one issue that someone raises on your project and they're just like, I want you to change this and this and this, you need to be, you need to be thankful that they're trying to assist, because they're usually trying to make it better, even if it appears as though they're not. Basically, all of your users and your contributors are the lifeblood of your project, and they are what makes it, worthwhile. That's what open source is all about. It's collaboration. So it's really important to ignore non-constructive feedback that people give you, and just focus on the constructive feedback. Feedback is wonderful, be it negative or positive, but it needs to be constructive. And it's really important to also keep in mind that some people just take things way too seriously, especially when it comes to code. And then it'll help you sleep at night a bit better. If you're a maintainer, it's important to be very careful with the words that you choose. And sometimes people really take what you say very seriously. Something I've noticed as I've been going to a lot of conferences and stuff is that your audience is much larger than it appears. I was talking to someone once. So Alex Gaynor has like some little tiny Django project that he made. It has like 4 followers on GitHub, right? Just for like checking NBC scores or basketball or something. NBC scores. And basically, like, he does this really crazy hack in his manage.py file that allows it to like load different settings with this command line argument that's passed in through manage.py. And he just like did that for fun, just to hack it up, and that's it. And I have met like at least 15 people maintaining like support tickets and stuff that come in, because I've run a lot of responsible for a lot of the Django projects that are running on Heroku. And people run into weird corner cases when they're doing crazy hacks like this. And and I asked them like, where did you see this? What makes you want to do it this way? And they're like, oh yeah, we saw Alex Gaynor do it on his GitHub page. And I talked to him about this, and he has like no idea that anyone would ever look at any of that code and do that. It's crazy. So your audience is so much bigger than you realize, because most of the users that are using your software aren't going to say anything. If you love something, are you going to go out? How often do you actually go out and tell the person that you love their code? For me, it's probably like 1 out of 10 times, and for most people, it's probably even less than that. So, most of your users aren't you aren't aware of them. So if you get one of those comments, and you're trying to, one of those comments that's like, it doesn't like, you can't repeat the issue, they're not telling you what's going on or what's wrong, you should take the opportunity to educate the user. A really good way to do this is to actually like document what a ticket should look like, or what you expect a contributor to be doing, and then just pointing them to the documentation in a nice way and try to educate them so that next time they come back, they will do it more properly. Oftentimes, people that are interacting with projects like that, it's like their first time they've ever worked with an open source project. And if you are like really crass with them, or just like you close it without saying anything, and that could be they might never touch open source again, and that's terrible. So a little bit of kindness really goes a long way. Avoiding burnout is a really big one. It's really easy to get burned out on open source projects. And really this is all about sustainability. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges of open source in general. You can either try to spread out with different contributors and members and getting more people involved, and that's a really good way to start combating burnout. But you have to realize that everyone has a limited amount of time in their day. We're all busy, we all have a lot of things that we're doing. And it's really easy to become the bottleneck of your own projects. So there's a coworker of mine named Wes Beery, he maintains a Ruby project called Fog, which is like kind of like an ORM for different infrastructure providers. It's really cool. So you can just like do things with Amazon or Rackspace with the same code base. And he has there's a lot of people in the Ruby world building tools with his library. So he's had to deal with this quite a bit because he has to work with not only people that are building and contributing, but lots of organizations that are contributing. And the quote is this: "Open source provides a unique opportunity for the trifecta of purpose, mastery, and autonomy. By recognizing the power of these factors, we can keep ourselves motivated and continue to increase our impact." So it's really important to pay attention to each of those things and try to optimize each one, as opposed to just like throwing your own man hours at it and trying to actually, just like throw your man hours at it. It's not a good approach. And for me, I have done this by these two fine gentlemen over here. They're my minions for my open source project. Oh, sorry. There is, so it's, I say them in my head, but not out loud. I guess it's Lucasaz and Sigma Virus 24. And these guys are like the best people in the world. Basically what they do is when an issue or a pull request comes into one of my projects, mostly requests, these guys triage it, which saves me a tremendous amount of time. So normally, like if I'm at a conference or something, I'll like constantly have to check all the issues and stuff and try to respond to these people as quickly as possible and tell them, most of the pull requests that come in often aren't very good and they need to be improved or things like that. And instead of having to go through all that process every time, these guys do it for me, and it's tremendously fantastic. So they really get to help optimize new contributors in their time, and in return, I get to optimize my time and actually help focus on larger issues. That's a loud plane. So, it's something that Corey said, is as I fork another of his projects, it occurs to me that I don't program in the Python ecosystem, I program in the Kenneth Reitz ecosystem, which is crazy to hear someone say, but it's really validating that, if you actually take the time to help get other people involved in your projects and you learn to do less, it benefits everybody. So everyone who works with my projects knows who this guy is, and they all interact with him, and he becomes more and more involved with all the projects that I work on, which is great. So if you do this with other people, they'll start to kind of get in your mindset, and everybody wins. So one of the most important things I've learned with projects is the hardest one, is to learn how to just say no. Saying no is like tremendously difficult. Your users are going to come and they're going to ask you for the most insane things you've ever heard in your life, and some of them will sound reasonable. Some of them will sound very reasonable. But you're going to get that pull request that adds that feature that fixes that corner case for that one guy. They're trying to help make the project better. But if it complicates the code, and you say yes all the time to features like this, your project can like slowly become the worst thing in the world. It can become like your cross to bear. It'll be difficult to maintain, and it won't be fun. This is one of my favorite quotes here by Peter Hitchens. He is the founder of ZeroMQ, and it's that simplicity is always better than functionality, and that's something that I try to do with all my projects. Basically, if a new pull request comes in and adds some really great features but adds complexity, I almost always try to say no, or try to find a better way to do it. Because ideally, I want as few lines of code in my projects as possible. The simple code is really great. Code solves problems that are created by humans, and we're pretty simple creatures. Usually, if code is complex, it's trying to solve computer problems, not people problems. And that's something that needs to be kept in mind always when working in open source. So the less code there is, or less there is to maintain. Negative diffs are definitely the best. I love seeing red in all my pull requests. It's awesome. And complex code sucks. Tight coupling and monolithic code bases, lurking, growing technical debt. The more lines of code there are, the more things there are to mess up, the more things there are to get wrong. So, say no to all the things. Open source makes the world a better place. Please don't make it complicated. That's it.